Hello there. A centre-right think tank has recommended that the UK introduces a biometric identity system. But what do Suella Braverman and Rishi Sunak think about this? Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe and then like and comment below. The Tufton Street centre-right think tank, the Centre for Policy Studies, has recommended in a recent report that the UK adopts a biometric identity system for the UK to combat both crime and irregular migration. A policy that would surely end up with the government setting up a complete identity management system that holds a complete record of every interaction you have with the state. Something that all government departments and their trusted partners in the private sector could have access to. And the foreword to the report was written by the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. However, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has ruled out the use of ID cards, with his official spokesman saying, "You will know the Prime Minister was asked about this and made clear there are no plans to bring in ID cards. That hasn't changed." Now, the think tank's report is wide-ranging and comprehensive, laying out the reasons for the need to cut those irregular channel crossings to zero. And as part of this, it stated, crucially, Windrush would have been avoided if, in common with most European countries, the UK had an identity database and system of identity cards. Such a system has long been controversial, yet in view of the authors, if not the Centre for Policy Studies, it would improve the enforcement of immigration laws as well as make it easier to investigate crime, help public services to determine access rights, and help employers and landlords to comply with their legal responsibilities. Britain already has a biometric residence permit system for foreign nationals. But unless everybody living legally in the country, including those who were born here or who have settled here, as well as migrants, has such documentation, the utility of identity cards and their equivalents will be limited. A clear indication that they think it is an essential policy to enable the authorities to crack down on irregular migration. And the 24th recommendation in the report says, we should introduce an identity database and system of biometric identity cards to help improve the enforcement of immigration laws and help employers, landlords and public services comply with their legal responsibilities. Now, although the Home Secretary wrote the foreword to the report, she did put in a get-out clause saying, "While I do not agree with everything in this report, I welcome it as a vital and necessary contribution to the policy debate about what can be done to tackle the crossings." But it does leave doubts and speculation as to which parts of the report she disagrees with. Now, the Centre for Policy Exchange also released a report back in 2008 when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister called Who Do They Think We Are? And in that, they questioned whether the government should have the ability to bring in non-compulsory ID cards and identity management. And it also said, but there is a bigger question about the principles underlying transformational government. Should any government be increasing its powers to collect, share and interpret personal data? Now, Rishi Sunak might be saying no right now, but if the numbers of those coming across the English Channel double next year, which on current trajectory is a very real possibility, then the public might be convinced by the WEF types to embrace the need for compulsory personal ID and demand it be brought in. And that's when there will be talk about amnesties and the like, to draw a line under the situation. Having undocumented people unable to get healthcare and housing will be too much for any government to ignore. We may as well let everyone who's here now just stay and save ourselves the problems, the do-gooders would say. Then once done, the demands will arrive for all family members to follow them. And more people will still try to get into the country via irregular methods, in the sure knowledge that one amnesty will follow another. And it's no good offering so-called safe routes for those who would qualify to be here, because those that are refused, or those that know they will never be accepted, will get in their next dinghy. ID cards won't stop that. They will still turn up with no paperwork, and we'll probably end up giving them temporary ID cards, or they'll end up in the underground economy until the next amnesty. Now, for some reason, do-gooding appears to be on the slide. It seems that many Ukrainians, given a room by a family in the UK after the Russian invasion, are now homeless, with the Times saying that their numbers have increased by 30% in the last month as host families withdraw their support. Maybe it's the cost of living crisis that is now kicking in, and £350 a month is not enough. Those householders promised to give the Ukrainians a room for 6 months for £350 a month from the government. But now the 6 month is up, the need to provide emergency accommodation for homeless Ukrainians has spiked. And the Times says it understands that the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, Michael Gove, is in talks with Treasury colleagues to get an uplift in the £350 monthly payment. In fact, some councils have already taken it upon themselves to pay the hosts extra. The trouble is that there's also another aspect to this. While emergency housing is needed for the Ukrainians, there is also a growing demand for housing due to UK families being evicted because of rent arrears. Probably another reason why Rishi Sunak wants to force the construction industry to build 300,000 houses a year. Although looking at the state of the housing market right now, I'm not sure it's worth building companies paying the high costs for the building materials, like bricks and wiring, to build houses in the face of house prices sliding in the coming months. And with the cost of living crisis and huge energy bills, how many people will actually have the wherewithal to buy a house? Unless the bank of mum and dad runs deep, or you have a top-notch job. Now, according to the Times, the statistics show that there are 2,985 Ukrainian households who have presented themselves as homeless to councils. And that is thought to be an underestimate. As far as I'm concerned, this is what happens when you allow people to ride across the channel, abuse our generosity, and supplant those that really do need help. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.